Hi, my name is Stephanie Potter, and for my program proposal, I developed a program for the Christian Medical and Dental Association of Canada, where I work for my day job. And the program is centered around developing chapters and local fellowship groups for the organization. CMDA, as we call it, a lot easier than having to say the whole name, has been around since the 1970s and was built on a model of local chapters. Those initial leaders have been very dedicated and devoted and engaged for a long time. But at 55 years and now 56 years of existence, many of those leaders have retired or left, just left ministry for lots of reasons or have passed away. So we're sitting in a moment where we have an incredible opportunity to develop new leaders in our local chapter. So my program originally, I thought that my program was going to be me deciding what it would look like to develop a chapter, and then going to a sort of a town hall setting with the various leaders across the country and telling them, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to develop this. This is a really exciting thing. And instead, and we'd actually already in a preliminary way started some of that process at our last national conference. We'd had a sort of listening session that was less listening and more telling. So instead, through the early parts of this process, I did consultation with leaders that were representative of some of our, what I would call the problem areas for our chapters. I looked at chapters that were more rural, chapters that were away from city centers, that had large catchment zones. But then I also looked at two urban chapters that had gone through leadership transition in the last 5 to 10 years, where those leadership transitions were challenging. The chapters are thriving now, but I wanted to learn about that experience of transition and what happened and what we can learn from them. And so in that discussion, I discovered that the need was so nuanced. There were a variety of things that needed to happen, and that there was no one size fits all model for the chapters. Instead, there was a more of a, the one size fits all for me was that I needed to stop and listen and then collaborate. Our members are doctors, dentists, medical and dental students, medical residents. So these are people who are by nature not designed, they're taught to be leaders. They're trained to be leaders. They have a lot of skills. They're really aware of the challenges in their community. And so by listening to them, we could collaboratively come together and say, okay, let's really look at your chapter. Because I noticed a lot of them were just sort of in maintenance. Like they were just trying to keep things going. They were trying to keep things going. And they were, in some cases, just maintaining traditional models without a lot of reflection, because tradition really matters to them. But they were, sort of regretting the decline in attendance, the decline in new membership, and wanted to reflect on that. We're really open to reflecting on that, but just had not had the brain space to do that so far. So that was, I think, the biggest learning for me through this process was the incredible benefit of, I'm a person who comes up with ideas left, right, and center. It was really interesting and a great learning for me to listen to them, to lean on them. And so the model of leadership that really became the model of community development that became really pressing for me, was an asset-based community development, because across Canada, every member of the organization is an asset. They all have gifts, they all have talents, they all have abilities, they all have experience, and they're all, lifelong learners. If you're in the medical and dental profession, there's always something new. There's a new kind of crown, there's a new technique for your particular surgery or whatever. So they're okay with lifelong learning. They're not rigid in any way. So the only thing they needed was to be asked. And I was happy. I was happy for that experience. And it really transformed And I'm sure that this is the same with a lot of the organizations you're working with too. Canadians are an incredible, capable people. Nova Scotians are incredible, capable people. But it was a great learning for me that going forward, nothing I do should be top down. It should always be from the bottom up. I'm a mom of 7 kids, so my whole life has been top down for a long time. So it was really great to transform my perspective on that. And because of that, the initial project really transformed over the assignments. And the final assignment is really guided around how do I support them, but also, how can I excite them about trying something new? How can I help them perceive some of the equity and inclusion challenges that they might have at their local level that they might be overlooking because it's somebody's lived experience that's different than theirs? So it was just an incredible thing where I perceived growth in them in the chapter leaders as I spoke to them, but also in myself as they transform my perspective. So I'm really grateful for this process, and I look forward to hearing about all of your projects too. Thank you.